Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, the second to last one in our Moving to OER series. My name is Megan Kowalski, and I am the Outreach and Reference Librarian. I'll be handling the logistics for today. And my colleague, Tricia Clark, will be discussing how to find open educational and open access resources. We will have time for questions at the end, both recorded and unrecorded. And so feel free to either unmute yourself or put your question in the chat, and we'll be able to answer that as they come in. So, Tricia, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Megan. Good afternoon, everyone. As my colleague Megan mentioned, my name is Tricia Clark. And today I'm going to talk about how to find and evaluate OER. Oh, my slides are, there we go. How to find OER, and also a little bit about how to evaluate your OER options once you find them. All right, so I'm going to first start by talking. So there's a common misconception that the use of any freely available material is the same thing as using OER in a classroom. So OER, open educational resources. OER represents a subset of OA, open access materials, but not all A is OER, right? So OA material can include scholarly journal articles and data, and they have been made freely available to the public. However, this material does not always provide permissions to change the content, and the publisher is under no obligation to provide perpetual access. So to be considered OER, the materials must meet a few criteria. The first of that criteria is that OER materials are usually created with education as its primary focus. The most common example of OER is an electronic textbook, but it can include a variety of educational materials, including classroom slides, syllabi, and other ancillary materials. So secondly, perhaps most importantly, the material must expressly give permission to use and reuse materials. This permission is often given through the use of the Creative Commons license. And there are many different kinds of Creative Commons licenses available, as you can see here in this image on the chart. However, for material to be considered OER, it must allow derivatives or adaptations of the original work. So if a CC license contains the letters ND, which stands for non-derivative, that means that derivatives or adaptations are not allowed, and thus the material cannot be considered OER. So essentially, you can use OA materials in the classroom, but they may not have a CC license, and that can affect how you can use that material in your coursework. Right, so we have already covered why you should use OER and OA in detail in a previous webinar in this series, and that webinar is called Why You Should Use OER and OA. And you can find that series, that webinar, on our YouTube page, but I will just briefly highlight some reasons why, again, using OER and OA in your classroom can be beneficial to both you as faculty and also to the students. So as traditionally published textbook costs remain high, they can be a financial burden to students. So one of the primary advantages of using OER and OA in the classroom is that these materials can help alleviate some of that financial burden. These materials are often free or low cost. Another benefit of using OER and OA is that faculty can make resources available to students even when the course ends, so beyond the life of the course. Making resources available to a student beyond the scope of the course enables them to revisit these materials for a variety of educational and applied purposes, and this increases the educational return on investment as these students engage with the material in different ways over time, including supporting future learning and enabling professional success long-term. A final reason, or an additional reason actually, to use OER and OA in classrooms is the potential for having more meaningful and engaging classes, also more culturally appropriate classes, depending on the context. So the nature of OER, specifically its ability to be remixed and adapted, is perfectly suited to allow for adaptations that not only suit your students and your courses, but also are culturally relevant. So the UDC library has an extensive LibGuide that covers various aspects of OER, and this LibGuide includes links and other resources to help you find OER, which I'll demonstrate in a bit. I'm going to go through some of these websites, but I want to first outline the various kinds of OER that are out there. So I'll start by talking about books. Open textbooks and open books are textbooks that are funded published and licensed to be used, adapted, and distributed freely. They are typically either used at higher education institutions or affiliated with an institution, a scholarly society, or a professional organization. These books are typically reviewed by faculty from a variety of colleges and universities to assess their quality. So they are peer reviewed. They can be downloaded for no cost or printed at low cost. A great starting place for open textbooks is the Open Textbook Library. And again, I will demonstrate these sites at the end, so I'm not switching back and forth. But Open Textbook Library is a great resource for open textbooks. Another great resource is the Directory of Open Access Books for textbooks in addition to other materials. And then I will note that there are a number of books that are freely accessible on sites like Project Gutenberg that are not necessarily considered textbooks, but which can be used in the classroom. There are also, in addition to textbooks and just books in general, you do have access to journals or journal articles in places like the Directory of Open Access Journals, right? The DOAG is a community-created online directory that indexes and provides access to high-quality, open access, peer-reviewed journals. DOAG is independent, so all funding is via donations. And there's certain percentages of that which comes from sponsors and members of other publishing members. So all DOAG services are free of charge, including being indexed on that site. All data is also freely available. So in addition to textbooks and journals and articles, multimedia can also be considered OER or OA. You can also use different kinds of multimedia resources in your classroom. So some places to look for that kind of material include the Open Video Project and OER Commons. And then I do want to mention that you have access to ancillary materials and on many of these sites, and I'll demonstrate that a bit towards the end. But that just means access to things like test banks and additional material that you can use in your classes. All right, so in addition to finding OER, you should spend some time evaluating the OER that you will be using in your classbook. So while it's helpful to know that most OER textbooks you'll find are peer-reviewed, it is still a good idea to evaluate the course material to see if they are appropriate for your course. And again, the library's OER LibGuide has some linked resources to help with evaluation, and I'll demonstrate that as well. So when evaluating OER, you should consider, and this comes directly from that LibGuide, you should consider a few things. That includes coverage, accuracy, the licensing, the level, and the accessibility. So for coverage, think about whether or not the material or textbook covers enough information relating to your topic. In terms of accuracy, is the content correct? And is it also free of things like grammatical errors, right? So the same sort of kind of details you'd pay attention to when evaluating any kind of information source. The licensing. So which CC license is the material issued under? And can you use it and remix it, right? So this is also an important thing to keep in mind. What level is it? Is the material written for? Is it written at the level of your students? Is the text clearly written, right? Some other additional considerations. And then the accessibility. Can the material be used by all students with full consideration for their learning needs, right? Something else to keep in mind and to consider is whether the text is culturally relevant. If it's not, this might actually be an opportunity to remix a text to fit your class's specific cultural needs or cultural context. Additionally, there are a number of rubrics that you can refer to. And again, these are listed on the library's LibGuide about OER. So I'm going to take some time now to demonstrate some of these sites for you. So this is the UDC Library's LRD's LibGuide on OER. We have a lot of good information here, so I highly recommend coming to take a look at this. So we have links here that outline not only how to find OER, but also to evaluate OER. So the first site I mentioned was the Open Textbook Library, which looks like this. You can browse subjects. You can also search if there's a specific text that you're looking for. Or you're thinking about whether or not that text is OER or open access. You can take a look for that title using the search. But if you browse by subject, you can find a variety of materials. I'm just going to demonstrate using one of these books here. Okay, so you have access to, this is in another language, which is also important to note that you can search by language. When you are searching for a textbook on the Open Textbook Library, you have access to a couple of different kinds of materials. So you can, or options, you can see the breakdown of the table of contents. Obviously, the information about the book is available, and also the author's information, the contributors are available on this site. It tells you what the licensing status is right on the bottom. And if you have some questions about what the specifics of the CC licenses, you can click and take a look, and they'll explain in some detail. And you can download the books typically, or access the books, I should say, typically in different formats. So in some cases, you can access it directly online, or you can download a PDF of the book as well. Okay. So you can search again by subjects, various subjects. You are also able to learn more about the organization that hosts the Open Textbook Library site. Okay. The other website I mentioned for books was the Directory of Open Access Books. So again, you can search by subject. You can also search or browse by language, and it gives you access to the book once you've found one. This one's a little slow. Right. You can filter. And again, you have the opportunity to download the book, a PDF version of the book, directly from that site. All right. In addition to books, as I mentioned, you have access to OER material in the form of articles. You can find journals and articles on the site DOAJ, Directory of Open Access Journals, and you can search either for journals directly, okay, and filter through based on subjects and languages and even licenses, right? Or you can search for specific articles. And again, you can filter through by subject, right? You can search by year of publication using the search terms and search bar. All right, and then the last site I want to show you briefly is the OER Commons. And again, all of these sites that I'm mentioning are linked on UDC's, LRD's OER LibGuide, which is easily accessible to you. So OER Commons is a great site for various reasons. I'm just going to go to the advanced search bar here, because this is a great site for a few things, specifically for multimedia. You can search specifically for video. If you're looking for audio or both, you're able to select that down here. This is also a good site for ancillary materials. So that includes things like instructor materials, lesson plans, case studies, data sets. All right, so being able to filter through some of this information as you're searching can be really helpful. So OER Commons is great for a number of resources, but I think in particular for multimedia resources, as well as ancillary material for your courses. Okay, all right, and I was mentioning the LibGuide. So not only are there numerous links and information for you regarding where to find resources, right, broken down into categories, but you also have information on how to evaluate those OER materials that you've discovered. So specifically, we have some rubrics, evaluation rubrics available on that website, and you can take a look at the criteria laid out. So this is OER evaluation criteria, sort of a checklist that you can take a look at. But again, you have options when it comes to a variety of rubrics that are available to you on the LRD's LibGuide. And that brings me to the end of my demonstration. I'll go back to our screen here.
Thank you so much, Tricia, for covering all of that. Is there any support that the library can offer when it comes to finding OER and OA?
Absolutely. So myself and my colleague Megan, we are the representatives for the the WRC Textbook Affordability Working Group. So if you have questions about OER, if you are thinking about converting a course to OER, you have not only myself, but Megan as resources. We can help you find, if you have some materials that you're already interested in, we can kind of take a look at those with you. We can consult with you with that, but we can also help you find materials for your courses. Or if you're just curious about more information about what OER is and how it can be beneficial to you or to your course, feel free to email us. Let me put the, go back to our PowerPoint so I can put our contact information up on the screen. There we go. So you can reach us via chat. You can email us at the ask@udc.libanswers.com, or you can email us individually. So I'm Tricia Clark, my colleague Megan Kowalski. We are both able to help you if you have interest in receiving support for OER.
Thank you so much. And I'm not seeing any other questions come in today, so I want to say thank you for attending. And the recording of this webinar will be posted to our YouTube later this afternoon and sent to all registrants. Thank you, Tricia, and everyone have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.